Hello children, let's start our second part of the lesson packing. I think we need to start from point number 8. They began in a light-hearted spirit and then they started packing. His friends, Jerem's friends started packing, George and Harris, evidently intending to show me how to do it. Actually, they wanted to show him how to do the packing. I made no comment. The author did not make any comment. I only waited. The author simply waited for them to do the packing. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in this world. Except George. He said exception of George means only if we except George, Harris is the worst packer in the world. And I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc. and felt that the thing would soon become exciting. Now the author was pretty sure when he saw the piles, the bunches of plates, the piles of plate, heaps of plates, cups. He saw kettles here and there, bottles, jars, pies and stoves, and cakes and tomatoes. He felt he had something in his mind that the thing is going to be really excited. He is going to enjoy what his friends were up to. It did, and really it turned to be excited. They started with breaking a cup. Now his friends, George and Harris, they started packing with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did, and this was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. They did so just to make the author curious that what they were up to. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on the top of a tomato and squashed it. Now his friend Harris, he packed the bottle of jam on the tomato, and he really smashed the tomato, and they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. The tomato was in such a condition because the bottle of jam was put on the tomato. It turned into such a condition that it was not possible for them to pick it up with a hand, and they had to pick it up with the help of a teaspoon. And then it was George's turn, and now it was George's turn, and he trod on the butter. He simply stepped on the butter. Now what did George do? He stepped on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of a table and watched them. Now you can see in the picture the author is sitting on the edge of a table. Now author said it made him more curious when George stepped over the butter. He came and sat on the edge of a table to see them properly. Now, it irritated them more than anything I could have said. Author did not utter even a single word, but the way he behaved, the way he sat on the edge of the table irritated them more than anything else. I felt that the author felt from their expressions that they are irritated. It made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on the things because of author's reaction as he sat close to them to see them what they were up to. That reaction of the author made them quite nervous as well as excited. They started stepping on the things. They started walking on the things and put the things behind them. As they were quite nervous, they were not able to do the packing properly. What they did, they were keeping the things behind them, and then couldn't find them when they were wanted them. As the things were kept behind them, they were not able to get them the time they wanted to pack them, and they packed the pies at the bottom. What they did now, what was the next thing that happened during packing? They packed the pies, soft dessert. They packed the pies at the bottom and put the heavy things on that and smashed the pies in, and completely smashed the pies. They upset salt over everything. They sprinkled, or they threw the salt over everything. And as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did, author said. And for the butter, what they did with the butter, it was like he had never seen anyone in his whole life doing what they had done to the butter, which was only of worth 1 or 2 pence. What they did to the butter, now let's see that. After George had got it off his slipper, now the butter was stuck to the slipper of George. He removed it from his slipper and they tried to put it in the kettle. Now the teapot or the kettle in which the tea is put, they tried to put the butter in that kettle. It would not go in. It was not going in, and what was in wouldn't come out, and the things which was in the kettle, that was not coming out. Now they did scrap it out at last, and finally they scrapped it down and put it down on a chair, and they finally, once the butter went in, it was not coming out. Now what they did, they scrapped with the help of a spoon. They tried to remove the butter and kept it on a chair. Harris sat on it. Now finally, when they put the butter on the chair, Harris sat on that and it stuck to him. It stuck to his back, and they went looking for it all over the room. They kept looking for the butter everywhere in the room. I will take my oath I put it down on that chair, said George, staring at the empty seat. George said that I swear that I had kept the butter on the chair and he was continuously looking at the place where he had kept the butter. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Harris said, yes, I'm sure. I have seen you doing so I believe you. Then they started round the room again looking for it. Now they continuously circling the room for looking for the butter, and then they met again in the center when they were taking the rounds of the room, and finally they met in the center and stared at one another, and they were looking at one another. Most extraordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. George said that he had not, this is an extraordinary event that has happened. And Harris added to that, he said, yes, it's so mysterious. Where the thing has gone. Just now you had put it here and now it's somewhere else. Then George got round at the back of Harris and saw it. Then George suddenly he went at the back of Harris and saw that it was sticking over there. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Out of anger. Indignantly means angrily or annoyed at someone. Angrily he said that it was here all the time. It was sticking to your back. Where? Cried Harris. Harris asked him where. Spinning around. Again he took a round and asked him where. Where have you seen the butter? Stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him. Now George shouted and told him that it is at his back, and they got it off. Then they removed it from his back and packed it in a teapot. Montmorency was in it all, of course. Montmorency is their pet dog. He was also included in the packing. Montmorency's ambition, his aim in the life, is to get in the way and be sworn at. Always to be in the way and to get the scolding. If he can squirm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. Now, Montmorency, their pet dog, his main pet dog's ambition in the life was to get the scolding all the time. And if he could be at the place where he was not required, moving there continuously, irritating the people and created a perfect nuisance, make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. Then he felt that his day was not wasted. To get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour is his highest aim and object. And when he has succeeded in accomplishing this, his conceit becomes quite unbearable. And when Montmorency gets success or becomes successful in irritating the people or in doing so, then he thinks, or then he felt proud, or he had a pride in himself that his aim in life has been succeeded, his aim in life has been achieved. To get somebody to stumble over him, his main aim, dog's main aim in the life was to come into the way of people so that people falls down. When he lies down on the way of people and people put a foot over him and they fall down, it was his main aim in the life. And curse him steadily for an hour, and people when keep on cursing him for an hour is his highest aim and object. And when this aim was achieved by Montmorency, he felt a pride in himself. His pride in himself was unbearable. He came and sat down on the things just when they were wanted to be packed. His ambition was, when the things were required, when George and Harris were wanted something to pack in, he immediately came over there and sat over the things. And he labored under the fixed belief that whatever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything, it was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. And whenever George and Harris tried to take out the things, tried to take the things from him, he made it sure that they could not get anything what they were able to get at that time, because he had hidden the things. Dog has hidden the things under himself, and when they tried to get the things from the dog made it sure that they do not get anything except their hands touch the cold damp nose of the dog. He put his leg into the jam and he worried the teaspoon and pretended the lemons were rats. Now, what else he did? The dog put his leg into the jam and teaspoons were moved from here to there, and he then pretended in front of everyone that the lemons were rats and got into the hamper and killed 3 of them before Harris could land him with the frying pan. Before Harris could do anything, or before Harris could hit the dog with the frying pan, before that only the dog killed 3 rats. Killed 3 rats means smashed or squashed the lemons. 3 lemons he squashed, believing them to be the rats. Harris said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. Now Harris said, I encouraged him. I didn't encourage him. Harris said that he has encouraged them. Encouraged him. Him means dog. The dog. A dog like that does not want any encouragement. It is natural, original sin that he is born in with. Then he explained that there is no need for a dog to be encouraged, for such type of a dog to be encouraged, because he is already born with such type of qualities. He doesn't need any encouragement. He is already born with this type of qualities. Which type of qualities? To disturb people, to irritate people. The packing was done at 12:50. Finally, the things were packed by 12:50. Harris sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. Then he sat on the hamper and said that I hope there is all the things are perfectly fine. Nothing is being broken. George said that if anything was broken, it was broken. Then, which reflection seemed to be comfort him. Then George said that, fine, if anything is broken, let it be. On hearing these words of George, Harris was little comfortable. He also said that he was ready for bed and they also wanted to sleep. We were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night and we went upstairs. That day, Harris was about to sleep with them, he was at their place, author's place. He was supposed to sleep with them that night. We tossed for bed and finally they tossed. They did toss, when you throw a coin in the air, that toss. They tossed for the bed and Harris had to sleep with me. With me here means author. He said, do you prefer inside or outside, J? J means Jerome. Then Harris asked, would you like to prefer inside or outside the bed? I said, generally I prefer to sleep inside a bed. He said, I want to sleep. It's a joke. Try to understand it. Harris said it was odd. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? What time should I wake you up? Harris said 7. I said no, 6, because I wanted to write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of a row over it. Then they had a little argument over it, but at last split the difference and said 6:30. And finally, to resolve the problem, they both agreed to get up at 6:30. Wake us up at 6:30, George, we said. Then Jerome and Harris said George to wake them up at 6:30. George made no answer. There was no reply from George's side. We found, on going over, when they went near him, they found that he had been asleep for some time. He had already slept. So we placed a bath where he could tumble into it, and on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. Then what else they did? They kept a bathing tub near him, and when he will tumble or when he will take a turn, George, a turn over the bed, then he would surely fall down into the tub, and then they went for the bed. That's all, children, for the lesson. Thank you.